And what is up, everybody? I am currently in my living room. It is pretty early in the morning, but I got a bunch of stuff that I have to sort through. And watching Bloodsport. And the reason why I bring this up is because the Urban Action Showcase is happening on November 10th. It's which is also the Marine Corps birthday. Ron Van Cleef is going to be there. Bob Wall is going to be there. Carl Scott is going to be there. Willie Johnson, Ty Mock, a lot of famous martial artists. But this is more a film festival. But it's supposed to represent diversity within film. And Action Fuzz is going to be there. My other channel, my artwork, is going to be there. But specifically, certain things. The reason Bob Wall is going to be there is because it is the 45th anniversary of Enter the Dragon. So that's why Bob Wall is going to be there, because unfortunately, Bruce Lee as well as Jim Kelly have both, long since passed away. It'd have been great if Jim Kelly could have, been with us for a little bit longer, because he, died not that long ago. But unfortunately, last year was Michael Jai White celebrating the 20th anniversary of Spawn, and Ty Mock's there pretty much every year. And it was 3 years ago. It was the 35th anniversary for The Last Dragon. So this particular film festival, pretty big deal. But it's also the 20th anniversary of Blade. Wesley Snipes, unfortunately, he's invited, but they didn't say if he was coming or not. Whatever his schedule is, I don't know. And then there's also, it's the 35th. This year is the 35th anniversary or the 30th anniversary of Bloodsport. They couldn't get Bolo Young. There was no way in hell they were going to be able to get Jean-Claude Van Damme. And trying to get anybody else, from the film would have been, borderline useless. Even to get Donald Gibb, people would remember him more from Revenge of the Nerds, Nerds in Paradise, more than and other stuff that he had done, maybe from this movie. But yeah, I've made several suggestions to the promoter for this film festival. And what I wanted to, what I told him, I just got finished messaging him. I was like, well, here's an idea. Since you can't get anybody from the cast of Bloodsport to be here, why not get Frank Dux? I'm sure he traveled. You're having Bob Wall here. Ron Van Cleef is here. Carl Scott is here. I'm pretty sure he travels in a lot of the same circles that they do. So it shouldn't be too difficult, to get him to show up. And what happens is he replies to me and says, that Frank Dux, his name basically brings up a lot of controversy, and he doesn't want to be a part of that, and to look it up. Now, I was completely aware of it. The controversy surrounding him. I remember because I was watching on Court TV Frank Dux versus Jean-Claude Van Damme. I remember that vividly. I remember, finding out that the whole movie of Bloodsport was not true. That the whole thing was more less made up. And then a few years ago, while my father was still alive, I see this documentary called Put Up Your Dukes. And it's more or less the true story of Frank Dux, which leads into hit, talks about when he, coming as a Canadian immigrant, because his mother and father were immigrants during the Holocaust, going to Canada. That from Canada they come to the United States, and in the United States that's where he trained under a few martial arts masters at the time, because the area that he lived in was basically swarming with all these different world champion martial artists with all these different organizations. So what winds up happening is eventually there's proof of him being in the Marine Corps, and that he was in intelligence, and all the other stuff that he says that he had done. Now I understand. Somebody pointed out. I'm not going to acknowledge who it is because the dude's just absolute jerk. But he pointed out that at the end of the movie it says he holds the record for 54 knockouts in a single tournament. Now the tournaments run over 3 days. Even by the testimonies of some of his friends, who said that he would have to fight 15 times in the same day, in order for him to have 54 knockouts or whatever in a single tournament, there would have to have been over 1,000 fighters. Well over 1,000 fighters for that to be in that tournament. I'm not 100% sure who said what, because unfortunately it's like what what some like prime example, I put on I performed in 2 different plays, but by the same playwright. But on the playbill it says that I'm an award-winning screenwriter. I've written some scripts, for some short films. That's about it. Never won any awards for them. So when I get, so who's to say if he was the one that said it, if it was the, director that said it, and especially the fact that the director admitting to, because mind you, the director of Bloodsport, he had an idea for Kickboxer, because he was also the director of Kickboxer, and this is when kickboxing was becoming the new martial arts movie craze, in the 80s. At first it was ninjas, then first every martial art movie that came out was about ninjas, and then finally they started doing kickboxer stuff. So he had the idea for Kickboxer. The problem was he was first introduced to Frank Dux. Frank Dux showed him video footage, whether it be film or VHS cassette, of basically what he did. Okay, is watching the gonna be the end credits here. This motion picture is based on the events of the life of Frank W. Dux. 1975 to 1980, Dux fought 329 matches. He retired undefeated as the World Heavyweight Full Contact Kumite Champion. Let's move on. Fastest KO. Yeah, 56 knockouts in a single tournament. Okay. How they reached that number? No idea. If it's true, no idea. I mean, it has to be. That that organization would have to be run worse than Naga, to even be considered, for something like that to have happened. You got so many different people just absolutely hating on him. And if you watch the documentary, uh, put up your Dukes, it's sad. It's truly sad for somebody, for somebody like him to have gone through what he had to go through, whether it be with Jean-Claude Van Damme, whether it be with his personal life. But it, like, after losing the case, then all of a sudden his military background is called into question. And once that's called into question, then they have the, you know, what, reporters are asking, okay, what is the, it's like, asking the government, okay, what's Frank Dux records? And what they say is, and what they basically, and what they say is, we can neither confirm nor deny. If it was fake, they would have just straight up said, there's no evidence. There's no proof. This never happened. But it said, we can neither confirm nor deny, basically throwing him under the bus without actually doing it. And people took that and ran with that as like, oh, that's absolutely fake. There's even, like, you can even look online. There's a video footage of him, of Frank Dux actually fighting in a, it seems very traditional, organized tournament. And if you, and watch, and like I said, watch Put Up Your Dukes, because that's something else that's that's a pretty big deal, due to the fact that it's like it explains a lot of the stuff that Hollywood seemed to, Hollywood doesn't want to acknowledge personal encounters with certain people, whether it be martial arts masters or, friends that have known him for a long time, that have known him long before Bloodsport. Then you got the fact that the director of Bloodsport was on Frank Dux' side until he lost the case against Jean-Claude Van Damme. The brain trauma that he had suffered from an injury that he acquired by this jerk having punched him in the face with brass knuckles. And then there's also the fact that, due to the fact that the man is marine intelligence and has done lots of intelligence work, meaning covert ops, meaning black ops type stuff. Needless to say, he's probably suffering from PTSD. PTSD does some pretty tricky, unpredictable, unchartable stuff to your head. It's possible he's suffering from some form of several forms of dementia and delusions. That still doesn't hurt his credibility, especially since they try to say that, oh yeah, his time in there's no proof that he did any of this stuff. Yet, okay, Ken Shamrock trains regular Marine infantry on a regular basis. Trains regular Marine Corps infantry. And that mostly in the Marine Corps martial arts program. For black belt testing. Absolutely understandable. But then you got somebody like Frank Dux. Now, mind you, the Marine Corps martial arts program is open to absolutely anybody. Frank Dux only deals with Army Special Forces. He only deals with Deltas. He only deals with Rangers. You're teaching them in hand-to-hand combat and tactics. They don't do that if you're just a regular civilian. They don't do that if you're just a world champion MMA fighter. You know, tactics. That's something that you have to. That's something that you have to have some, serious knowledge and experience of, and the United States government contracts him to do this. Something that a lot of people who basically just hating on him just fail to consider for the most part. The 56 knockouts in a single tournament, I don't know. The actual organization, Black Dragon Society, International Fighting Arts Association. Look up their website. Apparently, they have a very long history. Plenty of Kumite, and they even list a bunch of Kumite champions, plenty before Frank Dux. So to say that he invented it doesn't make any sense. So when I'm watching Bloodsport, even Frank Dux said back in 1988 when the movie came out, back in 1988 when the movie came out, that it was a Showtime or a Cinemax interview, because they were basically before the movie hit theaters. They're doing behind the scenes stuff and doing promotions for the movie, stuff that they still do for movies to this day. So in this particular promo spot, they're saying, oh yeah, they're following the the true life of Frank Dux, and they said, how much of this movie, it's like, how much of this movie is real? He said, the spirit of the competition is real. So in other words, everything else about the movie pretty much fake, especially the fact that they had him in the United States Army when he's a Marine. So to have Frank, right off the bat, this is not not historically accurate. There's characters and certain characteristics, stuff like that had happened. Okay, fine, whatever. But to completely discredit him due to the fact that the movie wasn't true. That doesn't mean that his life wasn't. Man has suffered enough. I forget the name of the guy that he fought on two different occasions. He weighed 220 pounds and was rumored to have moved as fast as Bruce Lee. And like anybody, and even to this day, like certain things that he's able to do, the fact that they show him punching through bulletproof glass, showing live demonstrations of of the Denmark on network television, where I understand certain this, that, the other, even demonstrations of fighting blind, as well as they show in old video footage of this kid with cerebral palsy, not only Down syndrome but cerebral palsy, and what happens is he continues to he starts actually through basically like Eastern medicine and massage techniques. This kid was bound to a wheelchair his entire life, and he actually made him, and basically through treatment and training was able to get this kid to actually get up and walk. He wasn't walking 100% upright or anything like that, and but basically he's just like, the guy had his knees bent and was slowly, taking steps on his own. Granted, Frank Dux, was had him by the hands, not holding him up entirely. This is not the work of a fraud. It's not the work. It's not the work of a fraud. Certain things were obviously embellished to make the story more entertaining. But one thing is for certain: the man is not fake. It sucks that this form of controversy is going on about him. Like prime example for me. Like my job was, I was an ordnance technician for F-18s. That doesn't mean I haven't seen combat, because I got other guys that I served with, guys from my shop, guys from my squadron. It's an F-18 squadron. We're not supposed to, our job is not to pick up our rifles, put on flak jackets and the Kevlar helmets and go out and do perimeter security or do patrols or, to do grunt work. That's not what we're supposed to do. Yet I did it because every Marine's a rifleman. But because you come to find out that now there's pictures of me during my time in Iraq, pictures of me standing posts in Iraq. But if I was to become famous and say that, yes, I'm a combat veteran. I was there when Geraldo Rivera, gave away the position of where they were at, and they all got, we got shot at, and some people, might have been killed during that situation and stuff like that. I was there. I know I was there. I know other people who know I was there. And if for whatever reason I become, famous and saying these experiences that I had, and somebody looks up my military background, they'll show that my MOS was 6531, which is the reason why this channel's name is Ninja 6531. And they'll say, "Oh, but what he was describing was an 0311, which is a basic Marine infantryman, basic Marine infantry." So he can't possibly be a combat veteran. He can't possibly say that that he's done any of the stuff that he's done. That's basically what they did with Frank Dux. That's basically what they're doing with Frank Dux. Despite the fact that there is proof because of something else, because of, we can neither confirm nor deny, because of the fact that Bloodsport embellished entirely too much. They just use that to completely discredit him, despite the fact that he was the first man. Guinness already has him as the first man to have punched through bulletproof glass. Oh, they discredit that. Oh, the glass was fake. This, that, the other, and just so many other different things that they just love to basically throw in his face for the sole purpose of discrediting him, to basically just add on to basically the past couple decades of insult, just adding more insult to injury. It sucks that they do that to him. Somebody as accomplished as he is. Okay, Bloodsport isn't true. Bloodsport isn't true. Everything else this man has done, he actually has proof for. Then, even on Put Up Your Dukes, that idiot actor. I have no clue what his name is. All I know is he's a bad actor, and he had the nerve to tell Frank Dux. Had the nerve to tell Frank Dux, "I wish you could prove. I wish you could prove that you did the stuff that you say you did." Meanwhile, your career has gone absolutely nowhere, and you have you have the nerve to say this about about a man who's been through what Frank Dux has gone through. It's not, it's not fair. It's not fair what they do to him. It's not fair that now I understand completely why the promoter of this film festival doesn't want Frank Dux around. He doesn't want any form of negative press because unfortunately that's what's going to that's what's going to follow him in this that's what's going to follow him in this situation. I understand. I don't agree with it, but it's his show, and I understand why he feels that way. Frank Dux, my brother in the core. At least I believe you. I'm done talking. You guys have a good night.